to another edition of Beyond the Arc right here on High School Cube News. Brian Chimino with you once again with Michael O'Brien of the Sun-Times. Not a lot of changes in the top 25 this past week. You can check out the entire rankings right here on the website. So, Mike, let's talk about some of the big games that we saw last weekend. Friday, down in Bradley, you saw Bradley Bourbonnais host number 18 Thornton in a big conference matchup. Thornton did escape that one with a 77-67 win.
Yeah, Thornton, is one of those teams that was ranked in the preseason, had a rough start. They've lost to Springfield-Lanphier, who's undefeated and the number one team in 3A. They lost to some other, downstate teams, but they've really been hot since losing to Marian Catholic in the Dipper final. I think this is a team that has a future and that could do something. Justin Taylor is really a 6'6", strong, athletic kid. They got a lot of good guards like Daquan Applewhite, a couple other guys, and they are really focused on Marian Catholic. They just had a big win over Bradley, a really good young Bradley Bourbonnais team, and they still wanted to talk all about Marian Catholic. Marian's got to watch out. When they hit them in the sectional, Thornton's going to be just guns blazing. They think they know how to beat them this time, and they've got the strength and the physical, athletes to do it. That's going to be an interesting matchup. And Bradley Bourbonnais lived up to, their record. They were 12-2, I think, headed in. We weren't sure what to think. They didn't have any big wins. They're not a great team yet, but they're really, really young. They have 3 sophomores playing all the time, and Micah Bradford, a 5'10" sophomore point guard, might be the best sophomore I've seen play this year. He's a 5'10" point guard that can score. He scored 22 points, had 5 assists. If he was in Chicago, we'd have heard a lot more about him. He's definitely the real deal, so it was worth the drive down there.
Last week we kind of ragged on Simeon for only having one win against a ranked team, so they went out and beat their second one, and we're talking about an overtime win versus Bogan.
Yeah, and it was at Bogan, which is just a very difficult place to even exist, much less play a basketball game. It's just a tough, tiny little gym. That's a huge win for Simeon. They needed that to kind of get over the hump and beat Luane Pipkins and Bogan, so they are going to be on a high headed into the city tournament.
And the War on the Shore at Loyola on Saturday night, the main event, number 8 Loyola staying undefeated in the state of Illinois, knocking off number 11 St. Viator in dramatic fashion. Kevin Kucera, the hero of the day for the Ramblers.
Yeah, it was just a fabulous game, a fabulous finish. St. Viator played the best defense I've seen on Loyola all year. They did it the whole game, and then they had to do it for one more minute, the final minute. Livitino, the Loyola coach, kept calling timeouts. He called 3 timeouts because he didn't like what he saw. And it turns out that St. Viator was able to shut him down for, about 53 seconds. And then Kevin Kucera drove the lane, got the layup. It was just an incredible play. Loyola, they've got a feel about them this year that, they're very competent. They don't turn the ball over much. We've talked about how great they can shoot, but they're just winning these games that maybe they kind of shouldn't be. They're pulling them out. It's a kind of a magical feel around Loyola, and I haven't felt that around a lot of other teams this year.
And what about St. Viator? Roosevelt Smart, a little dinged up, probably couldn't contribute as much as he had hoped.
Yeah, he played so well until he left with an ankle injury in the third quarter. And it was kind of funny because the 7-0 run, as soon as he left the court, he's such an integral part of their defense against Loyola. He's so athletic. Roosevelt Smart was able to really give Jack Morrissey some problems. Jack Morrissey didn't have room to shoot. As soon as Smart leaves the game for 3 or 4 minutes, everything kind of changed for Viator. It was a rough thing. Someone we should mention that we haven't talked about too much, Patrick McNamara from St. Viator. In the last 2 years, I've covered them maybe 6 or 7 times. He's always played great. He really is one of the area's top players. It really doesn't get talked about a lot. Roosevelt Smart's a great, exciting, athletic player, but right now, there's no way you could say he's as productive on the high school court as Pat McNamara. He's a really good player.
And if you're a Loyola fan, speaking of Jack Morrissey, you can check out Beth Long's MVP segment with him that took place last week. Let's look ahead to some big matchups this weekend, and we're talking about a huge one on Friday. Down in Lincolnshire, it's a rematch of an earlier contest. Number 4, Stevenson, hosting number 3, Zion Benton. Like I said, Stevenson trying to avenge that overtime loss in Zion.
Yeah, this is one. It would have been a great game if it wasn't for how great the last one was. But now we know it's a grudge match. We know they're going to be up for it. Zion, if they can pull it off again, will make everybody believers finally. Malik Yarbrough will head into that game probably as the leading scorer in Lake County history. He'll probably pick that up on Tuesday. So Zion's going to be pumped. It's going to mean a lot to them, but Stevenson has Matt Johnson back, who they didn't have last time, and that's going to be a big X factor for them.
Big matchup in the DuPage Valley this weekend. We're talking Naperville Central, 15-5 on the road at a West Aurora squad that is really hot right now.
West Aurora we need to talk about. I mean, that team is primed to hit for a run to the Elite Eight in Peoria. There's no doubt about it. They're going to match up against Proviso East or York or someone in the super sectional, but I can see West Aurora playing for the state title at the last day of the season. They have the road and they have the team. Jontrell Walker is an absolutely amazing guard. They've got big men and they've got Roland Griffin, who's a great X factor.
And another big one on Saturday, we're talking about the Batavia Night of Hoops. Previously mentioned, Stevenson Patriots facing Bennett Academy, who finally got a big win against St. Patrick's last weekend.
Yeah, what a week for Stevenson. You got to deal with Malik Yarbrough and Zion Benton, and then all of a sudden Sean O'Mara and Bennett. I mean, O'Mara, I saw him this past weekend. Wow, I mean, he was just dominating people. He's improved just in the last month and a half or whatever. You know, Colin Pelletieri can really shoot from outside. He's improved a lot for Bennett. Bennett's always a dangerous team. That's going to be an interesting test for Stevenson. They don't have anybody that can stop Sean O'Mara.
Also, the city tournament tips off this Wednesday night, February 5th. Tune in next week for a preview edition of the quarterfinals right here on High School Cube News. For Michael O'Brien, I'm Brian Chimino. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Beyond the Arc, and we'll see you next time.